What up, Instagram fam? This is Marshall Mann, and I figured I'd give y'all a behind the scenes on a podcast episode. I'm about to finish the episode with Miranda Wrights. Shout out to Miranda. Super dope episode. I'm very excited to release this thing because she had so much good insight for artists. She said a lot of good stuff for people listening to music, for people that are interested in the artistry. But Miranda Wrights' episode is super good for those of y'all that are like artists trying to make it, or those of you guys that are like trying to put together your team to be able to really support you. Miranda has some really good experience and background. Girls from New York, and she's been doing this for a long time. So it's crazy when I can actually sit down with people that have some good insight and stuff that I can pass along to you guys. So big shout out to Miranda. I've got this episode like 90% done. I figure I'm going to do the intro to it that I normally do on the podcast live. So let's just get into a quick little background on Miranda Wrights. This episode's going to be super dope. It's coming out today, so make sure y'all tap in with it. Should be available in like another hour or so. If you're watching this after the live and this is the saved video, this thing's already out, so definitely go peep that on Spotify. But it's episode 32. Miranda Wrights is her name, and she's been outside. She talks that talk. She walks the walk. She don't sleep on the dawn, basically. Like she's not messing around. She's got some dope music, and it really falls into that category of like vibey stuff that like you got some lyrics to, but at the same time, while you're lyrically attacking a track, you also want to be able to like have a good time, have some fun, stuff like that. So also shout out to Lord Sco for the dope merch. Still repping this stuff. Robless and NVR Beats with the dope hat too. I know it's got a big ass bill. Some of y'all are like, how big is the bill on that hat? I didn't even know until I went on live the first time with this thing, and I was like, oh, snap. But anyways, that is the merch-tacular info. But I got lots of episodes of the podcast coming. Make sure y'all are following the podcast, blah, blah, all that fun stuff. Check us out on Instagram at Spotify Scavenger Podcast. So let's get into recording. I've got the intro music set up, I've got each of the little interview pieces, and then I've got songs in between so that there's extra context for the people listening to the podcast. But I always like to start out with an intro so people know what they're getting into. So let's fucking do it. And for those of you guys wondering about Miranda's music, let me just actually throw a little something. I got in trouble last time I went on live. They were like, you're playing too much music, which I don't really understand, but okay. Let's peep some of Miranda's vibe real quick. Got a really good eye, or excuse me, ear for production. Yeah, got an eye for production. Like she picks some seriously dope beats. One of my favorite songs by her is The Dawn. Just because of that beat alone. I ain't trying to get kicked off again. But point being, she does some dope work, and she really does have a great ear for production. So that's one of the things that caught my eye initially, and then she just kept going, kept dropping dope shit. Like Prosper is super dope. She's got an What's Happening to Official. I appreciate you tapping in. There's so much good stuff in her catalog. But to Official, we got to get you on a podcast episode, man. You've been killing it for too long. But let's get this intro recorded for episode 32. So I'm gonna start recording. All right, got the Yeti mic all set, audio pop filter. We live, we running. All right. Welcome back to the Spotify Scavenger Podcast, y'all. This is Marshall Mann, the one and only Spotify Scavenger. I am actually recording this live on Instagram. Before we get this episode out, this is going to be episode 32 with Miranda Wrights. She's got some dope music, super dope catalog, and she's an even doper person. She's got a great ear for production. I loved talking with her about her catalog because that's one of the things that we were vibing on, was figuring out what her lane was and her figuring out basically how she carved it out and how she's continuing to stay on track with the lane that she wants to stay in. So nothing but good things to say about Miranda Wrights. She's obviously on this podcast for a reason. but make sure you check her out on Instagram. It's Miranda_Writes. Check out the podcast, Spotify, Scavenger Podcast, and then me at I Am Marshall Mann. But otherwise, let's get into this one, y'all. I'm super stoked. I've actually had my eye on Miranda for, like 2 or 3 years now, I think. And after a couple of years, I finally was able to like get her and me in the same place, same time, through the internet. But anyways, it was nice to be able to link up. It was kind of like the interview with Lux. I believe that was episode 25, where I didn't expect to be able to really sit down and get them on the podcast with me. So I'm very excited not only to have Locks from episode 25, but also to have Miranda for this episode number 32. So do not sleep on Miranda, but I'll stop talking and let y'all get to the music in normal Spotify scavenger fashion. I put a couple songs at the beginning of the episode so that y'all can get a little idea of the artist, and then there's some songs mixed in so that y'all understand the context as I'm asking her about bars and asking her about sounds and, you know, her sonic narrative and her lyrical narrative and everything that comes together. So without further ado, this is episode 32 with Miranda Writes. And there it is, y'all. That is the intro for the Miranda Writes episode, and I'm really, really stoked to put this one out. She's got a dope fan base, and she does so many things. Like, girl is out there, like, snowboarding. She got a Red Bull sponsor. Like, she is killing in just about every way possible. She's got a good team around her, too. That's something I'm noticing with a lot of the artists that are really, really pushing and making progress for real. They got a good team, and not just, like, a bunch of dudes or a bunch of girls, whatever. Like, it's a bunch of people that have some established success, some people that are really down to work in addition to being loyal. Pardon me. For those of you guys that know me super, super well in real life, off the internet, I actually know someone who's done some work with J-Lo, Miss Jennifer Lopez. And that was one of the things I found so interesting about that whole world, was that she's got a whole team. Obviously, she's doing tons of stuff. But point being, her team is still something that she's got to be working the pieces on. And like, somebody steps out of line, she got to move that person off the team. You know, you can't be afraid to be moving the pieces around because you are the king or queen or both in your chess game. And speaking of chess games, shout out to Kaniva, that single Pawns in the Game from his digital re-release of Lost Gold. Super, super good. I love Kaniva. And he connected it, too, with a reference from The Wire about them bald-headed bitches. Some of y'all are like, whoa, Marshall. Bald-headed bitches being the pawns in the chess game. But that shit is dope. But shout out to everybody watching and listening. I appreciate all y'all in the live or on the podcast, everything in between. Got to get Too Official on a podcast episode. Got him up in the chat right now, and we definitely got to make that one happen. I am making notes, and We've chit-chatted a little bit in the past, so it'd be dope to really get that to come full circle, man. But let's get this Miranda Writes thing, intro, all up in here, and then I can get this episode out, because I know some people are extremely stoked for this one. Let's see here. So I got to give it a listen real quick. All right, let's do this thing. Podcast, y'all. This is Marshall Mann. Not too bad. Pretty clear. Yeah, for those of y'all watching, I appreciate y'all tapping in like to the fullest for real, because this is the type of stuff that like really, really gets grindy. You're sitting here like, I mean, that was a one take, thank God. There are times where I'm sitting here like 6 takes. I'm like fucking on my words, just. So it's really dope to get the one takes, especially when they're live, but also just to be able to give a little peek behind the curtain on this stuff, because a lot of times this is just some basic ass stuff that I'm working on, you know, nothing crazy. I'm editing, you know, tiny little pieces of stuff. Welcome back to the Spotify Scavenger Podcast, y'all. This is Marshall Mann, right. The one and only Spotify Scavenger. I am actually recording this live on Instagram. I won't make y'all listen to that 2 times over because I know you heard it the first time. But point being, I listen and edit every single thing on this podcast because the whole point of it is to make the artist look good. So if I don't know what I'm talking about, then that doesn't make the artist look good. So shout out to all the artists. Shout out to the artists in the chat and everywhere out there because y'all are killing it. I appreciate every single one of y'all continuing to do your thing for yourself. because it's something that benefits other people, but a lot of times you have to be an artist for yourself, otherwise it becomes something else, you know? That's right, Mr. Jones Raps, the non-glamorous side indeed. This is this is that super non-glamorous side. Let's edit out the end of this thing.
Together. So, without further ado, this is episode 32 with Miranda Writes.
All right, nice and smooth, nice and easy. Let's see if I cut this in here.
This is episode 32 with Miranda Writes.
So we're going to have to do that. And that's it, nice and easy, kabam. So with that intro, let's see. I got Prosper, Too Grown, The Dawn, Been Outside, Talk That Talk, and Winning Season by Miranda Writes on this podcast episode. So for those of y'all artists tapping in and listening and watching, I always try to make sure I have at least 5-6 songs of you on the episode, because part of what I love to do is making sure that the artist gets some streaming credit for the song. It's tough because you can't put like music in a podcast if you're just like recording it and throwing it on there, you know, like you would for the podcast. But if you use Anchor, shout out to Anchor, to make your podcast, it can actually let you link it up with your Spotify. So I legit have like her songs on the podcast within the episode. So it'll not only make sure that they get credit for the songs and the streams, which is dope, but also make sure people can like find you, they can add you to playlists, you know, follow you as an artist, like your songs with the green heart and all that type of stuff. So I'm pretty much I'm a Spotify and Anchor head through and through. Anchor FM or Anchor.fm is the website. It's pretty much the easiest way to make a podcast. I've done some ads for them in my podcast before, and I legit believe it's super, super easy. So if any of y'all have ever been wanting to do that, you can do video and audio. Super fun stuff. Very basic. I don't make music myself. Mr. Jones Raps, I appreciate you asking, bro. People ask all the time. They're like, yo, especially those bots in my DMs, they'll be like, yo, I love your music. Let's get you famous. And I'm like, what music? So, no, I don't make music myself. I used to play drums as a teen back in the day. But I gave that all up, you know, looking for real jobs and stuff like that. And at some point, who knows, I might enter something on the production side, but you never know, man. I've actually always wanted to just kind of be behind the scenes in some way. I'm a much better, like, writer, you know, song structure, that type of shit. So I'm definitely much more behind the scenes. I think that's also why I do well with the podcast, because I'm able to stop and like see some of the layers and the meta stuff within the songwriting and the sound in an album. You know, there's a lot of themes and stuff like that. It's really similar to like breaking down literature and breaking down just straight up reading and writing. And I did a bunch of that in my college experience. Don't ask me how college was, because it sucks. No, for those of y'all that are young, yeah, do your thing. Go to college, whatever the hell it is. I'm moving behind the scenes now. Mr. Jones Rap says, I'm stopping making music and managing artists now, as well as writing for others. Dude, that's honestly where a lot of the I don't want to say just the money, but like that's where a lot of the credence or a lot of the good stuff really goes. Like I always find that the person that is the artist, half the time there's somebody that's got to be able to just like always smile, you know what I mean? Always get the people engaging. Like they're not the people that are always coming up with the content. Like the first episode of my podcast I did with a guy who's an artist, but started as a ghostwriter. And so it's really interesting to see how that's the door that a lot of people have to get into before they decide that they want to like full on be an artist. Like Kanye, have you ever looked at one of those lists of songs that Kanye has produced that you didn't know he produced? It's stuff like that where you're like, yo, he's been going, like people thought he came out of nowhere, like, and then years later we've got all this big old classic catalog, but it didn't happen so quickly like that. You know, he was really grinding and behind the scenes for a long time. That's how he made his connections. That's how he made his money. You know, there's so many songs, bro, so many songs. And so many connections. That's the thing too. I didn't start getting some real good like podcast episodes until I started branching off my connections. So the connections are so much more important almost than even your talent. I mean, obviously you have to be working on your talent and your shit. You got to have a little little bit of network too in order to get started. You can't just sit here and podcast by yourself saying I talk to artists. But it's super interesting to see how those layers come together. I'm really, really interested in how people, because when you're especially songwriting things like that, there's so many different places you're coming from that you almost add so many different layers to the song, and sometimes people don't even pick up on them. I fucking love when I pick up on something like Easter Island. It's a track by Eva Shaw, Pressa, and Thousand Band Fawny, I think is his name. The first line in that track is way we out in the Easter Islands, you think I'd be ahead. Like something, it's basically a tiki bar. And I was like, bro, like you making shrunken head bars. Like, and it probably went over people's head the first 5-10 times they heard it. So that type of shit speaks to me. And I don't even care if people are like, and they move on because they don't get the layers. Like the layers are what I'm in it for. That's the art. Like poetry, that type of stuff really speaks to me. So I love when you can have some real, like interesting structural stuff to a song or the layers that add on there. But it looks like the Miranda Writes episode is all set here. Intro's edited. Yeah, let's get this thing published. And submit episode for review. Only bad thing about using Anchor is that they do review the episodes before it's published, so it's going to be about a 30-45 minute wait till the thing's actually live. But in the meantime, make sure y'all check out Daily Hip Hop. It's just freshly updated for y'all. Yesterday was kind of some horns and some kind of fun, interesting vibes, and then I switched it up. I don't know if y'all know the Rock America albums by Ito and Flea Lord. Just utterly phenomenal music. I'm a big fan of the whole new crack era, like underground, like that hard, almost New York vibe, but it's basically new crack era because it's coming from everywhere. That type of shit is, it's been heavy rotation for me for the last couple of years, but Flea Lord and Ito just destroy those two albums. It's Rock America, and I think the America has like a triple K, kind of like the Ice Cube reference and all that type of stuff. But that whole project is dope. There's two of them also, so make sure to check out both of those. Sometimes when I'm feeling lazy, I just find a phenomenal album and I'll throw it in the mix on Daily Hip Hop in addition to some other tracks. I know it's lazy, but gotta do what you gotta do sometimes. But today, Daily Hip Hop is more motivational, so I started it off with some interesting little tidbits of stuff. Like this is an intro from God is Stronger Than Feeling. Than Feelings. And this is a Nikkei album. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, so I apologize.
Fear is my friend.
Fear is my
I
friend.
love fear. Fear allows me to reach my highest potential. The fear of failing is an illusion.
Yeah.
Fear is an illusion, but we have to have desire. We have to have something that pushes us. Fear pushes us.
Mike Tyson starting us out today. But that's the intro on Daily Hip Hop today, and then we getting into a bunch of motivational tracks. I like to mix this thing up quite a bit so that we can go from, the bouncy, the boppy, the bad bees, the rat shit, the trap, the real hip hop, the boom bap. Like I'm fucking with everything. So I hope that these playlists are appreciated because there's some stuff. Actually, this playlist in particular today has a ton of tracks that have had a huge meaningful impact on me. For example, tracks like Better You by Evidence. Oh my God. Like
Information that you've been fed, that you find out that is not willing to the wrong information.
once you get into the actual beat, this thing is fire.
Yo, get it's what I better do. True, I'ma set it too. Never picked a better day to be a better you.
Never picked a better day to be a better you. Let that one sink in. But that's Daily Hip Hop for today. We getting very vibey and motivational, in that type of realm. Joey Badass, Malls Monday, Nas, Demrick, Shabo, Future, like we all over the place. You know, I don't discriminate. If you got a good message, I got a motivational playlist for you. If you got a bad message, I got a hard playlist for you. Like, that's just the way it goes. And plus, if you're just looking for something to make you go, all right, let's fucking get to work. 24 hours. Dizzy Bright, DJ Hopper, Exhibit. Sometimes I just need a track to be like, yo, get off your ass and go do the thing you know you need to do. And songs like this.
Yo, another black American that need a therapist. Yo, what that nigga say? I don't respond well to arrogance.
It's a little vibey, a little hard, but the hook is we all got the same 24 hours. So what you gonna do? That's all you need sometimes, you know? Somebody to kick you in the ass a little bit and remind you. I know we don't appreciate that shit too either. It depends on your age and stuff too, maturity level obviously, but I know I was always a little counterculture, a little contrarian, so it was difficult for me to actually listen when people were like, yo, you need a kick in the ass. So that's one of the things music has been helpful with, is finding, you know, different ways to motivate myself. So that I can get done whatever the fuck I need to get done. I've always been kind of leaning on music in some heavy ways, but today is motivational on Daily Hip Hop, so let's get it. And please take this as a reminder to do that thing that you've been meaning to do, but you haven't done yet. Y'all know what I'm talking about. I know you know what I'm talking about. There's that thing. That thing? You said you'd do it, but you didn't do it yet? Okay, I'm breaking your balls now, but you know what I'm talking about. Like, everybody's got that thing. So I've even got that thing, and this is me going, hey, Marshall, come on, fucking go do that thing. But definitely check out Daily Hip Hop. Check out the new episode of the podcast. Number 32 with Miranda Wrights is dropping today. It should be up basically any minute now. I'm super stoked for the episodes coming. Next episode is going to be a group called Don't Miss. They're a duo out of Boston, I believe, Howard University area, and they've got some seriously banging music. Like, these dudes are going hard. Like, okay, all right, let me show you. But Don't Miss is a hell of a group. It's two producers, and one of the producers also raps. We're gonna start with Manifest. Manifest is probably the best way to start on here. They use some samples, they use some vibey stuff, like they're definitely in that realm of dope ass music, like they're trying to get real, like, lyrical, but also give you some balance. How do you not sway to that? Come on, how do you not sway to that? They are super dope. I am so stoked to have them. I've had this one in the chamber for quite a while. And they even have like a good way to bring it down. Like the hook on this track.
Young soul swept up in the mundane, numb days, under bright skies that love haze. My love fades, burns, falls into the ashtray. Sad case, can we get a toast to the bad days?
I love an ashtray reference, so that's one of those things. If you can turn smoking and something, you know, ashtrays and all that, something that people have talked and rapped and sung about forever, and come up with something interesting like that, like my love fades, burns, and falls into the ashtray. Ugh, like that's a bar. And these dudes are like college age. They're young. So I love highlighting the dudes like that out there doing something. That's shout out to Rashad, shout out to Nasty Beats. Them two are killing it. So that's going to be the episode, the third episode this week. That's episode 33 with Don't Miss. Not out yet, but it will be soon. Don't sleep on those guys because they don't miss. Okay, I'm sorry. I like puns, and so sometimes I get myself in word jail from saying stupid shit. But Miranda Wrights episode is, oh my God, it's so close. Just in the review process right now. But we'll wait to see when that one comes out. For those of you guys that missed episode 31 of the podcast too, DJ Chase was the guest. And DJ Chase is a very, very OG kind of guy. Dude, man, he's outside like crazy. That's actually one of the themes this week of the podcast is DJ Chase is a formal, like, old school DJ in the sense of the word. Like, he is a DJ that you will find outside with records, spinning stuff. He's at parties. Like, that's what a DJ is, for those of y'all that forgot. But for those of y'all that are super young, you know, there's a big kind of shift or like a split between the people that are outside and the people that are not. And DJ Chase and I were talking a little bit about how, like, you got these YouTube DJs, you got these like TikTok DJs. The world's definitely changing because of the internet, and we forget sometimes that, like, all this stuff, everything came together from going outside. Like, DJs are for parties, like, you know, DJing in your room by yourself for like an internet crowd. Wow, that's fucking cool. It's still not exactly a DJ in the traditional sense of the words. We get into some stuff like that, which was kind of fascinating. He's also got some super dope music. He just dropped a track recently called Goblin. It's a remix of a beat that he made, and it's got, I know I'm going to say this wrong, Predo, and Molly McCoy. Again, that song is called Goblin, and it's a remix. The original Goblin is just his beat, super fire beat. Got some super fire lyricists on there also. And then he's got some tracks that he does himself where he's doing the production and the lyrics. Monday Night Lights being his last one, and just before that, Right Here Where You Stand. And in his own stuff, he gets a little bit in the Christian realm. And for those of you guys that know me, I'm obviously not super spiritual. I get a little, woo-woo with the universe and all that nonsense, but I try to keep myself, pretty grounded, I'm a pretty logical, skeptical type of person for the most part. So all of that, but all of that to say just that it was also interesting and fascinating for me. I grew up super Christian, and so at this point in my life, I am not religious, but it also, it says a lot when you can, have a good conversation with somebody that's got completely different views than you on some stuff, but then you can still meet in the middle on certain topics, or things like that. So great conversation with DJ Chase. It's a quick podcast episode too. This one is, how long is this one? It's much quicker than normal. A lot of times these things are 45, an hour long. That one I think was about 20-30 minutes. So it's a nice quick little one. Pop it in, bang it out. But Miranda Writes a little bit longer. The one before that with Kaniva of D12, a little bit longer. But we got into some cool stuff with Kaniva. Make sure, don't sleep on the back catalog either, y'all, because there are so many talented people in here that it's always nutty when I have somebody on the podcast and then something dope happens like a year later, 6 months later, not trying to bump myself up or anything. I'm just saying, I am always trying to look for people that are just doing their thing hard. And so whenever I get somebody on the podcast and then say, God, what was episode 11, Asha Amuno, dude just hit 1 million streams on one of his recent tracks. And I was like, okay, his debut album was super fire. He got signed to a little label in Los Angeles area, I believe, last year. And so he came down from, I think it was Northern California area, and, starting the new life out here, doing the LA thing. You know how that is for people that are not from a big city or from a place like LA. You gotta, adjust and get back into the swing of things over there, as well as figure out how you're working. And dude was living in a, I don't want to say, not like a commune, almost like an incubator. You got a bunch of artists living in the same building, and so you can be bouncing things off each other. You don't got people be like, I gotta wake up at 9, while you're going to the studio at 2 a.m. So it was super cool to kind of see, he was making dope music. He put himself in the right environments, got the deal, and then he's putting out music, and then bam, shit's starting to pop off. So I love to see that. That's the type of stuff that really gets me excited, because one, it shows that anybody can make it, but two, it shows you that a lot of this stuff is really just about pushing and progress. At the end of the day, this is you. So whatever you want to do, you got to make happen. So that's my Marshall inspirational rant, I guess, that goes with daily hip hop. But make that shit happen. Don't put that thing off. If you want it bad enough to dream about it, make it yours. That's all I'm saying. Got that donut shop coffee today. We went a little old school. But definitely don't sleep on that back catalog of episodes. I'm so fucking excited for this, man. Like, I remember starting this podcast and being like, all right, I just gotta like get people on it, just gotta do it. So I got like 5 episodes in, I think. I got about 4 or 5 episodes in, and I was like, oh, snap, okay, I can kind of do this. You know, I start picking up a stride, and then before you know it, I'm at like 10 episodes. But then, good God, man, that's where the grinding starts. So I think, check out episode 10, by the way. Sick in the Head, formerly known as Sith. That dude can spit. And he's a New York MC. He's in the same circles and network as people like Intel, who is U-God's son, U-God of Wu-Tang. There's, if you haven't seen Second Generation Wu-Tang is some dope shit. It's Intel plus, it's kind of hard to tell who the rest of the crew is, to be honest. But they, Sick in the Head is commonly on their projects. So don't sleep on them. That's what I'm just waiting to pop. Like, Sick in the Head, Intel, Second Generation Wu. There's a couple, you know, males and females in that in those circles and networks that are doing really, really good work, and it's just a matter of time until they start popping off. But I will say, don't give up on yourself, y'all. Like, there were times, let's see, yeah, right around episode 10, episode 11, where I just kind of thought about giving up. I legit, like, I mean, I stopped for a while. I took a little hiatus, and I came back, and you know what? After I, like, so let me rewind a little bit. Part of why I stopped, too, was I reached my goal. And I think this is also why it's so important to be evolving your goals and readjusting them. Because if you don't go back to look at them, what do you do when you get there? You're just like, and you're already in the swing of things. You need to have that goal set for the next one as you're passing the current goal. So for me, Asha Amuno was like the premier podcast episode. Like, the whole time I was like, I want to get this guy on the podcast. I want to talk to him. His album was utterly phenomenal. Wood Grain, I think, is the title of the album. I might eat my words. Let me see. Asha Amuno. Excuse me. Wood Grain is the title of a song. Good News is the title of his album. And that's a 2020 album. This was legitimately my favorite album, I think, of 2020. It is very kind of underground, you know, definitely a little rough around the edges in a good way. Like, that's part of what I liked about it was kind of smooth and hard and rough. You know, it had all of the different elements to it. What's happening, Monster? I appreciate you joining in the chat. This album, though, Good News by Asha Amuno, so sick. Because he gets into stuff, where is it? Like, there's a song called Six Pack. Dude's got like 500,000 streams on it by now, which is phenomenal. But Six Pack starts off super high.
I used to swim in my shirt. I don't swim in my shirt no more. I pull back the curtain. I was plotting.
When I was 10, I used to swim in my shirt. I don't swim in my shirt no more. And the song is called Six Pack. So that tells you right away there's something there. Like, this dude's doing something intentionally. And that is something I always love and look for.
She said I'm totally a person. I'm a new favorite person. Then she took off my shirt.
Then she took off my shirt. Remember when I was a teen. Like, dude's going full circle, taking you from the beginning of the story to the end and back again. Yeah, I absolutely love that. And he gets into, like, the verse on this thing. Come on! Still got that smooth vibe to it, but he just took it a little harder, and a lot of respect for Asha. This, oh my god, this whole project. Caviar, Questions, Big Words, Wood Grain. Yeah, Wood Grain. Oh my god. If you don't know Wood Grain, you should know Wood Grain. Yeah, this thing progresses so heavy. I love some progression in music too. I come from those old days of, like, progressive rock, like I used to listen to a lot of Metallica, a lot of Iron Maiden, some of those bands that have like these 8-9 minute songs, just ridiculous nonsense, but it's because they're doing the musical progression just to the nth degree. But this song in particular, Wood Grain by Asha Amuno, is so good for the progression because it takes it from the where we just were, into that. It's almost like it's building, but then eventually it gets into this even harder spot. So let me see if I can get that going. Don't sleep on Asha, y'all. This dude is killer. I absolutely love that song. I could listen to that over and over. I'm actually going to put that on a daily hip-hop coming up soon. Let's see. But that is Asha Amuno. And that's actually part of why I stopped the podcast for a hot minute. Because I reached my goal. I was like, yo, this dude makes phenomenal music. I was so stoked to even be chatting with him. At one point, I think I did, when I was trying to figure out what to do with the podcast in the first place, before I even released episode 1 of Spotify Scavenger, I released a little series of episodes called Artists You Should Know. AYSK is... Yeah, you see why it didn't work. AYSK. Yeah, Marshall. But Artists You Should Know, one of them I made was Earth Gang. And I posted that one. Earth Gang shared it. I was so thankful. And then Meditate the Rapper, who is episode 29 of the podcast, I think. She saw me on Earth Gang's page, tapped in, we connected. That was a couple years back or so, and we've been kind of homies since, and actually had her on the podcast. So it's weird how those things come full circle. It's really not about what you know; it's who you know. So you really just got to expand that network. But point being, at that time, I did an episode on Earth Gang, and I did an episode on Asha, and I think one other person or group. The Asha episode I posted, and he actually sent me something back, like a voice note on Instagram, that he basically had his family and his mom listen to the podcast episode, and it was really meaningful to them because it was taking their baby, this is their kid. I mean, at this point, Asha was still a kid, just getting through, getting signed and getting through his whole process, so he'd been grinding for a while. And those are the stages where people are like, are you going to make it? Should you get a real job? And people start wondering, but he pushed himself to the next level, and you could tell people making things about him was something so meaningful to his family. So that was so special for me. He sent me a voice note back thanking me, just saying some of that stuff. And it meant so much. I was like, I really got to try and interview this guy. I want this guy on the podcast. That was my whole goal. Because eventually I started the Spotify Scavenger podcast. Soon after that, got some episodes going. And I was like, I need to practice because this dude's going places. And I want to make sure I got good questions. And I'm, really got my grind on. So by the time I get to a place where, I can connect with him and get him to connect with me on the podcast, I get that up. And then I was like, creatively, what do I do? I was just like, you ever have your eyes on something for so long, you get it, and you're like, what do I do with it? That shit is wild. So legitimately, I had to regroup. I had other hustles and things like that too. This was 2021, so this was just before the crypto NFT stock market crazy stuff was happening, to real crazy levels. So I got pulled in a lot of different directions, but podcast wise, I didn't feel myself getting pulled back to it. So eventually I kind of reformulated my goals. I reformulated my expectations and what I was going to do. And I just started hitting it again, January 2022. And here we are, Lord Sco, Terminology, Raquel, Robles. Some of y'all know that name, Terminology. This guy has released 46 studio albums. Like, he is an underground icon, an underground legend. And I was so thankful to get him on the podcast. I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but actually, to get his attention, I didn't do this to get his attention, but it did get his attention. I posted a post on Instagram. I got COVID that day, and I was feeling bad. I took the test, and I was like, shit, I really do have it. So after I got the positive test, I go back to my grinds. I work from home, do a lot of shit like that. And so I post on Instagram about my daily hip hop update, and it was some like motivational type of playlist, something to really like, get you going. And he was on the playlist. He had a song on there. I think it was called Overtime. And he responded, because it when you tag somebody in a post that it sends it to their DM or something. He was like, all right, that's cool. Because I put something along the lines of, well, I definitely have COVID, but # no days off. And so he could identify that and identify with that, being the hustler and grinder that he is. And before you know it, we chit chat real quick, and I was like, yo, let me get you on the pod, man. Like, and got him on here. Another quick episode is what this one is. The interview section is real quick, but that was a really meaningful one, because it took me, almost a year to get back in the swing of things with the podcast and like figure out where I wanted to go. But then to get terminology was super dope. And then moving on from there into the rest of the catalog, there's a lot of dope stuff. Anybody that's actually sat down and really listened to this podcast, they see what's going on. They see what I'm trying to do, and they appreciate it. So to everybody that's listening, shout out to CD Reviews. I appreciate you, Cody. Shout out to Melvin. Shout out to trying to think of man, I see that's the problem too. I don't know half of y'all real names. I got screen names on Instagram hollering at me being like, yo, that was dope. But every single one of y'all, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Make sure to tap in with the last little batch of episodes. That last little batch from Brando Bambino through Lox, Shafi, S, Meditate, Cartier Casa, and then Kaniva of D12 just dropped recently, back on Sunday of last week. And then DJ Chase just dropped. Miranda Writes dropping today. So again, shout out to Sco for the merch. Make sure y'all are following Lord Sco. Dude is killing. And make sure y'all tap in with the podcast. But otherwise, I think this is Marshall out.